to start this episode off by congratulating Justin Garant. He's the winner of the Benelli Game Bag and the Hunter Chef Cookbook that was being given away in conjunction with podcast episode 136 with Michael Hunter. If you wanted to get your own Benelli Game Bag, you can head over to Stoger. Silvercore Club members get 25% off all clothing, 10% off all accessories, and free shipping. After wrapping up the Combat Flip-Flops episode with Griff, I went out and purchased a couple sets of flip-flops and one of his shemags, and of course I applied the Silvercore Club discount to that as well. For those curious about all the different discounts, perks, benefits of being a Silvercore Club member, head on over to the Silvercore website. There's going to be links in the description here. Coming up in the very near future, I would highly recommend to everybody who's listening to follow the Silvercore social media, keep your ear to the podcast. There's going to be some amazing giveaways, including ATI, Armament Technologies. They are makers of the finest scopes in the world. Marathon watches, been supplying Allied Forces watches for a very long time now. Two very proud Canadian companies. Make sure to stay tuned to check that one out. When I opened up my social media this morning, I saw a post that I was tagged in by Dana Dykema. She had tagged me and Silvercore in it, and she was talking about the underlying themes in the podcast that she really values. One of which in particular was that surrounding failure. The main themes that I try to get across over and over again in the podcast are that of community, that of positivity, of pushing ourselves to higher levels, of creating an awareness of the potential that we are capable of, and to not be afraid to fail. I don't know if it was Churchill who said this one, but it's often attributed to him. Success isn't final. Failure isn't fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. If it's true that our lives are made up of our memories and 90% of what we think about today is something that we thought about yesterday, perhaps by exercising awareness, by interjecting some critical thought and exposing ourselves to positivity will allow our tomorrow to be that much better. Without further ado, let's get this podcast rolling. As you go through life, there's a few people that you will meet that will have a massive impact on you, both personally and professionally. Today's guest is one of those people, and if you're a regular listener to the Silvercore Podcast, you're going to recognize him. And if you've paid attention, you'll see that he marked an inflection point in the podcast and really helped expand the direction where we go with it and what we do. So without further ado, I want to welcome back my friend, Seb Lavoie.
Good morning, brother.
Good morning. Man, you've had some things happen to you, some cool life experiences, some interesting life experiences since the last time we chatted, and I really figured it's about time that we kind of caught up and maybe distilled a few of these things that you've gone through, kind of got your perspective on a few different things. But maybe before I really get rolling, I want to ask you, how are you doing?
I couldn't be better, brother. Things are very good at the moment. As you know, I'm in the transitional phase of departing British Columbia and heading out to Alberta. A nice rural property, 14 acres, log cabin, green roof, rivers, mountains, on the border of Montana. Just an amazing move that is probably over a decade in the making. But I think sometimes understanding what the end goal is or what it is that you truly desire and negotiating that with what task you have at hand is critical. So I already knew, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, that's what the direction that I was wanting to take. But I hadn't cemented what that was going to look like in relation to my career. And so obviously retiring in 2021 opened the door up for a variety of different things. And that is one of those things that's occurring right now. And I am beyond stoked.
That's something that a lot of people, they'll have visions, they'll have ideas. Hey, hopefully they're saying, here's what I'd like to achieve. Here's where I'd like to be. But for a lot of people, they just sit in their head as dreams. And the path towards that dream, if they haven't traveled it before, seems almost impossible. They have a very difficult time seeing the next step or seeing their way through to the end and to actually achieving that dream. Did you find, because, this is all new, uncharted territory to you, Did you find that there was difficulties in both mentally transitioning yourself, leaving your work and finding sort of a new path in life, and now the big move out to another province? And I mean, you've got your network and everyone over here in British Columbia. Did you find that there is obstacles and hurdles that you had to overcome in order to kind of mentally get yourself ready?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the obstacles are the way, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's just, I'm regurgitating
Sure.
here, but the bottom line is it is the case, and self-doubt consistently creeps into your own mind, as well as not necessarily knowing exactly the direction that you're supposed to go into, or if you're even going in the right directions, And so, I think at the end of the day, there's part of this that's faith. It's faith, having faith that you're capable of adapting to changing circumstances, that you're capable of picking the slack up should anything go sideways, that you have enough in you and around you to make something happen out of nothing. All of those things are incredibly important, and to a certain extent anchors in making these difficult decisions. And so you can't just be coming out of nowhere, set yourself a very, very difficult goal, and have never negotiated difficulties along the way to achieve a desired outcome that not many people achieve. And so you need to have that knowledge about you. And that's where, of course, engaging in the difficult things and the things that are truly challenging you, the things that are scaring you, is incredibly valuable, because it also teaches you what you can and can't do, or what you can and cannot yet do.
There, I like that. I like that. No such thing as a word I can't.
No, there isn't.
So, people will look at their job and they'll say, well, I'd love to do something different, but I can't leave because I'm the breadwinner, or I've got a mortgage, or I've got whatever it might be. So I'm stuck, right? Or I'd love to move to a different place that offers a greater variety of what it is I'm looking for. Like for me, space, right? Greater space between myself and my neighbors, greater access to the outdoors where I don't have to sit in traffic for hours to get there. And people will come up with all this little checklist of, well, once the kids are out of school and maybe once A, B, C, D happens. Did you have a list of these things that kind of popped into your mind that you had to systematically go through and kind of check off?
That is the propensity, and it's my propensity as well as it is the propensity of the next person. The difference is I try to, at all cost, disable the disabler, if that makes any sense, because I will become the disabler. And as soon as I start focusing on something that creates an apprehension, the body's survival mechanisms kicks into full gear, and all of a sudden you're magnifying the risk that's associated with the whatever it is that you are after. But, for me, I was very aware of that. I was very aware that I was going to try to talk myself out of it in a sort of surreptitious, maybe even subconscious way. And knowing that, as soon as it percolates in my mind, I'm able to address it on the spot. Essentially a reframing, right? Yes, there is no perfect way. Yes, I may have to do this. And so the question that I ask myself every time that something like this sort of creep into my mind is, what do I need to do to get to where I want to go? What, in an ideal world,
Sure.
if I removed all fears and if I removed all apprehension with respect to where I want to go, what would I need to do and how would I need to address it to make that happen? And you will very often cognitively spew out the answers.
Sure.
Right? Because what you are doing is you have a knowledge and emotion, you have set it aside, and now you're brought the focus back to your cognitive mind, and you start engaging your logical brain instead of the fear center of the brain. And so for me, knowing that that's the case is the key. It's the self-awareness that leads to that self-regulation. It's not that it isn't happening. It's that when it's happening, you recognize it and you move away from it. You take that step out, so to speak, and look at the broader picture. And so there's plenty of time, and even without boring you with the details, even if in our fight to get there, to sell our home, do all this, it's been a 4 months ordeal, and we've had multiple lenders fall through, and we had multiple things happening, and there was at least 100 different times where everything in me said quit. Stop, just wait another year or wait another 2. But then I would reframe that too and say another year, another 2. Time is your biggest currency.
Yes.
You don't know that you have that. You don't know that you have that time at all. And so if you are to do anything and you keep on pushing it for later and later and later, how many people have filled their graveyards with all kinds of later project unfinished?
Do you ever have, and what I'm going to get you to do, is there a piece of green tape in front of you there?
Yep.
Okay, I maybe have it in the wrong spot or my camera moved. If you can move a little bit to you. Yep. There you go. And I'll edit that out. There you go. Do you ever have the thinking in your head? I mean, people will push for something, and I can make something happen, and I can push against all odds to make it happen. And sometimes the wind's at my back, and it just goes. Am I pushing against the universe and out of sync with things and pushing for something that I'm eventually going to look back and say, like, why did I do it like this? Do you have these thoughts? Like, the difficult part with the mentality of all of the motivational and the self-help and you can do it and keep on pushing is people being able to recognize when they're pushing towards something that's desirable, that's going to lead them in the right direction, or maybe the universe is saying, hold on, slow down. Maybe there's a different place we should be going. Do you have those sort of thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And if I was to use a case study, let's talk about Sean Taylor and I's book when we first came out.
Sure.
To want to work on that book project. And along the way, what we have found is that every little step we took was 10 times harder than it should have been. Everything that we had in place, somehow there would be something that would generate a different outcome, and the person was either out or we didn't have the help that we needed, or the person felt ill, or whatever the case may be. And so it quickly became very apparent. And so it's important to look at the totality of the circumstances, not just what's happening, but what was happening with us. And so I reassess. What I do when this happens is I generally reassess our current situation. Are we in the best possible scenario, or are we in the best possible state to operationalize our idea at the moment? And so, yes, we have all these external factors that are not going our way, but are there internal factors that are not optimized? Because this is where the difference is. If I'm fully optimized, I will push until I'm being told that it isn't going to happen, or it quits. Right. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But ideally, I will manage the interconnection between the outcome and the goal and the external factors, and whether or not I'm optimized to reach said goal. And that's precisely what happens. So that pushing, an endless push and never quitting, isn't always the best option. Right. If you're not optimized as the individual or as the person that's wanting to do a certain thing, you may have to reassess that and say, I can work on ourselves. Exactly what we did with the book, for example. Sean and I realized that despite the fact that we had a lot of good stuff, we weren't quite ready. We weren't quite ready for the book to be as impactful as we wanted it to be. We weren't elevated at a certain level of proficiency, even in our communication styles, or even in formulating our ideas or our concepts, that would make a meaningful difference. So my end goal was to create a book that helps and a book that create meaningful change, but we both of us weren't optimized in that realm. And so for me, that was enough. I have the external factors telling me, slow down, you're not ready yet. And I have my own evaluation of our current status and situation that says, hold on, you're not ready yet. Then that's the time to tactically reposition, take a tactical pause, whatever you want to call it. Because it's not quitting. No. Because ultimately, all we did was 2 years has passed. We developed together and did all kinds of things to get all kinds of projects. And 2 years later, the end goal that we had, 3 years ago is exactly the same, but our capacity and our ability to make it happen is exponentially increased.
See, I've always had a difficult time just that, I guess, actually analytically quantifying when it's time to take a different direction. Because when I set my mind to something, I'd like to be able to analytically say, okay, A, B, and C are going on. It would be better to do this over here. But man, I don't want to be running away from something. And, when things get hard, that's when most people quit. And that's where I found success in the past, by pushing forward. But I will get a gut feeling. And I'll just get this deep down gut feeling, and I'll sit there. Maybe it's a guy thing. And you try and analyze that gut feeling when you say, it's not ready yet, or I'm not prepared to do A, B, C, D, or maybe I'm prepared to do it, but the collateral damage just going to happen to those people around me isn't something I'm prepared to take on yet. Do you I just rely on my gut? Is that what you do, or is there a better way to be able to, is there a process that you kind of look at to help put words to that gut feeling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do use my gut, and I use my gut as a barometer. Like, something is up, I'm encountering some resistance, or I have internal resistance, or there's external factors that are creating anxiety, or there's things I need to explore, and so I use my gut primarily to line up the sort of the actions that I need to take to ascertain whether or not I'm ready for whatever it is that I'm asking to do. Mm-hmm. Or to be. And so, no, there isn't an exact science, but at the end of the day, it's all about consequences too. Mm. What are the consequences attached to this? Is this grievous bodily harm or death? Is this, dismemberment?
Well, I just look silly.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about dismemberment.
Yeah, exactly. But if the consequences that are attached with whatever it is that you are pushing for are not catastrophic, send it. Mm. Like, I generally don't really hold back at all on any of those. But I will hold back on things that have, catastrophic consequences. And when I say catastrophic consequences, I mean if it was to affect your family in a very negative way, or
right.
or your business in a way that it'd be difficult to sustain living or whatever. Obviously those things, there has to be more articulation to myself behind the decisions that I'm making, or the direction that I'm taking. Mm-hmm. But if it's just that I'm encountering a lot of resistance, things happen where most people fail and most people quit.
That's right.
Right on the other side of quitting is what you're after. Mm. But what's difficult is it's easy to have that conversation. But when it happens, wheels to the pavement, and you get hit over and over and over and over again, it's really easy to take the path of least resistance, which is, okay, maybe now is not the time. Mm. And so the answer is, you don't know if that's the case. And so for me, unless there's catastrophic consequences attached to this, I'm going to push until I can no longer physically or mentally and emotionally cannot. Mm-hmm.
I've always kind of used the phrase done is better than perfect. And I've also looked at what's actually catastrophic. Because what's catastrophic in my mind today, a month from now, a year from now, I look back like, that was nothing. And even the things that seem catastrophic, you can go back on and say, well, it seemed pretty bad at the time, but look at the better place I'm in right now. Look at what I've learned from it. And with the done is better than perfect, if I'm building a project or doing something, and I'll do it even with this podcast, like I'll agonize over certain parts of this, and how should the intro be, and how should that be? And I've recently just kind of changed things up a bit, and I'm trying a few things out to expand the value that we bring to the audience. And I figure, you know what? If I throw this out to the world, that'll be the ultimate litmus test. Maybe I'll look silly. Maybe it'll tank a little bit, but I'm going to learn from this and move on. Done is better than perfect has been the one that's helped me get through those points.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't that one of Patton's most favorite quotes?
Was it him who said that?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I steal another one from him, which is, don't tell a person how to do something. Tell them what you want to see achieved and let them surprise you with the results.
Decentralized command.
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Decentralized command. So you sent me a pretty cool video, and I watched the thing through. It was about 45 minutes, and so that's a time commitment for somebody with ADHD to go through. I'm not going to lie. I put my finger on it to play it at 2 times speed. But I watched it front to back, and it was a neurosurgeon, MIT educated neurosurgeon, spent about 20 years of his life doing neurosurgeon stuff, working on spines and learning about brains and wanting to make a huge impact on people's lives. And he up and quit. And he made a massive decision to change the direction of his life to be more connected with nature. And he boiled down what he was seeing in the medical world of people who would come into him for a problem. They would have, let's say, degenerative disc disease or a bulge in their spine, and they're in a lot of pain. And he would operate on them, and they'd be back 6 months later or a year later with the exact same problem, maybe in the same place or different area. And there's other people who he would work on, and they would come into his intake. He's getting ready to do surgery. All right, here's your date. And they come back and they'd be like, yeah, I still got this bulge disc, but I'm pain free. Like, do I still have to come in here? And he was using a questionnaire process to look at their lifestyle, to look at where they're at. And he noticed a trend. And the trend that he tracked over a number of years for people who were seeing positive results had little to anything to do with the medical intervention that he was providing. And if I remember correctly, the big points that he pointed out were diet, and he kind of pointed to a low sodium, more of a plant-based, don't get rid of meat, but more plant-based, sleep, prioritizing sleep, exercise, being able to sweat, essentially, get out there and move and sweat. Positive social connections were massive. And of course, there's that Harvard study that says that's the number one predictor for happiness in people. And I think, was there one more piece? Because the one more piece I would add would be purpose. That was one that he didn't put in there for general happiness. Having a purpose combined with those would help a person. But he looked at these pieces and he says, I don't think I'm bringing the maximum positive effect I can bring to people. What if I started a YouTube channel and I did my best just to bring nature to them? And it was kind of for somebody to make that decision and leave a well-paying, prestigious job, everyone's going to be looking at him. His friends are going to be saying, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this? They're going to ask him to justify it. And he said he felt foolish. And then he stopped feeling foolish, and other people felt foolish for him, he said. They were looking at him and feeling embarrassed that he'd leave. And I thought that whole thing was really interesting for what he had went through, but also what you have gone through with your career. You spent a fair bit of time with the RCMP. You got yourself to a position coveted, worked very hard, and you left. Is there a similarity between what this doctor was going through and what you have gone through?
Unquestionably. So the one piece that was missing, the one angle that was missing with him is stress management.
Yes.
Right?
Mindfulness.
Yes. Mindfulness, stress management, all the mechanisms that feed into stress management. And I think that as valuable as the video was, when he's explaining and giving us the rational explanation as to why he left, what was really critical to me is what he didn't say.
Tell me.
Well, it was quite evident that the mechanisms that were employed by the people that were getting better were things that he couldn't do himself.
Yes.
And so not only did he see that as a problem for people recovering from injury, but he saw it as a problem for himself because he was heading down the same path without a back injury, right? And one of the things he said to that effect was in relation to, I probably won't live to be 60 if I continue down this path. And just imagine, being a sought-after neurosurgeon on call all the time, being dragged out everywhere and doing some very, very complex work with some people that sometimes you can help and other times you can't. So there is an emotional load that's being carried as well on that, and a certain burden. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, when I watched that, the one feeling that came to sort of that flared up was gratitude. And I say gratitude, and it sounds It sounds, either rehearsed or tacky but the reality is I felt gratitude that I realized early enough in life that the things that I adored doing and the things that I was engaged in on an operational front and the things that had made my life meaningful over the last 25 years also had an underlying sort of hurting mechanisms. And so, whether it's exposure to trauma, like repeat exposure and consistent exposure to trauma, whether it's even dealing with administrative stresses, from dealing with the nation's capital or the head office and managing highly stressful, highly consequential events in a variety of different ways, whether it was tactically when I was, in that kind of position, or even administratively, if the consequences attached to whatever actions that you are taking have a greater impact on the collective, which can be catastrophic. And so all of this is a lot of stress. And all you have to do, and I remember in 2015, I went to Hawaii for a vacation, which is coming back next week, by the way. So I went to Hawaii for a vacation, and I'm like, I love my job. It really doesn't stress me out. I can manage everything. I'm good to go, all this stuff. And I was gone to Hawaii for 3 weeks. I come back, and I was wearing a Garmin, and my heart rate monitor was on just coincidentally. I never set it up or anything. And I sat down at my desk coming back post-vacation, and I fired up my email. And within reading 4 or 5 email, I was 10 heartbeat per minute above baseline. Right? And I remember thinking, I'm not feeling stressed right now at all. Like I'm not feeling an increased arousal or stress or anything, yet here we are. There is a physiological consequence to the type of work that I spent 20 years doing. And we are seeing it with the suicide rates. We are seeing it with, the amount of people that have severe post-traumatic stress disorder, occupational stress injury, the amount of people that are in depressive states that have to stop working. All of those things are. So I do believe this. I do believe that a profession like this has a timeline. I do believe that we've extended the timeline way past what is safe. And if we look historically at some of our members that worked for 30 and 40 years, most of them, if not all of them, are dead within a year of retiring.
There is a good high percentage, isn't there?
It's incredibly high. And right now we are seeing it with some of our highest flyers that for, 3 decades of provided an incredible service, are extremely dedicated to a time obsessives, some might say, and really, really out there doing the thing and getting after it and helping as much as they could at every job and taking all the overtime in the world, doing all this stuff, and they are dropping like flies. Like we're seeing them drop like flies. And we're talking about people in their early 50s or mid 50s in great physical condition, people that have taken care of their bodies, all this stuff. And so answer your question precisely, for me, I've had a great career, no complaints about my career, but I was very aware of the cost of the work, of the unspoken cost of the work and the subconscious cost of the work, which was in my case conscious. I knew it was happening, even if I didn't fully understand the extent to which it happened. And so when I decided to go out and explore life, I already had built enough experience in managing things in which the external factors were extremely complex and successfully so, that I wasn't worried about what's going to happen with me. I thought of it. It played on my mind. It wasn't the safest option, but it also was a great challenge and a great and something that I knew I would have to step up for myself in sort of a burn the boats type scenario. And when you left yourself no other choice, you have to take actions and you have to do the things that you need to do to satisfy or to accomplish the outcome that you're after. And so when I watched this video and I saw him explaining what he was hoping to accomplish out of his career, what triggers, so to speak, made him realize that what he was doing wasn't exactly in line with what gave his life meaning and that there was potentially a better way to achieve the meaning. Don't fall in love with your own plan. Don't fall in love with your own plan. I don't care how much you invested in it. And the reason why I say this is, imagine this. We have now an MIT trained neuroscientist or neurosurgeon that has 10 years of experience, and he's out there in nature focusing on his dog and connecting with nature. But now he brings this to other people. And that there's a great lesson in there, because if you want commitment to a cause, it takes 10 years, 15 years of schooling to get to the position that he was in. And then he did it for 10 years. And the money that's associated with that position is really good.
It's next level.
It's really good.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
So now you have, from an outsider looking in, when now you start, this is perspective for you. And it's not invalidation, it's perspective. You can look at this and say, okay, this guy was an MIT-trained neurosurgeon that spent 10 years in neurosurgery. He made a ton of money, and he made a decision that was better for his wellness overall. And that is the number one priority at the end of the day. And so when you look at this and you've spent 3 years in policing, for example, and you did a 6 months course to get there. And it's easy to think that everything you've put so much effort in that somehow, if you don't follow the path that you have established for yourself, that you're going to do it wrong. But it isn't the case. That path that you forged, the information you've gained, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you've gained are a part of who you are. I don't care what you do. It's never going away. Like this guy, academic achievements, the fact that he was able to negotiate what arguably and non-arguably one of the hardest programs there probably is in the medical school, has given him the self-confidence that he needed to walk away from it. Mm-hmm. All that. And now he goes into a different venture with the same analytical mind, with the same intellectual capacity, with the same drive, with the same, all of those things. So he's polished all of those tools. He's bringing them into a different context. Like, he hasn't negated what he did for 20 years. That 20 years made him. And so now he's able to address life, look at life through a different lens, but with all of that skills, knowledge, and abilities going nowhere.
There's a lot of power in what you just relayed there. And, there's that logical fallacy of being pot committed that so many people subscribe to. I put all of this time in. I put all this money into it. It's going to pay off soon. It's going to pay off soon. And being able to stop, regroup, take a more desirable course of action by using what you've learned through all of that. I think there's a lot of power to that. And, the other one was don't get married to the plan. I don't know if I'm paraphrasing what you said there, but don't get married to the plan. Don't get yourself so attached to the plan that you had in place if the plan isn't giving you the outcome that you're looking for. But you also said something about looking for your meaning. What gives your life meaning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, various things give my life meaning, and all of those things are somewhat interconnected. And again, we as human beings, we tend to silo things because it makes it easier for us and more palatable and easier to process. The reality is everything is interconnected deeply and viscerally, and failing to recognize that can cause issues. And so for me, it's always been at the core of it, helping the collective in one way or another. I just love to help people.
Yes.
It really doesn't matter in what context. It could be, physically protecting them against harm. It can be mentally and emotionally being present when they need a friend or somebody to talk to or bounce ideas off. It can be in a professional setting, with coaching people or going and do guest speaking appearances and really convey some critical information to people so that they can make better and more sensible decision in relation to the things that they're wanting to do or the things that they're stuck in or whatever the case may be. And so for me, at the core, always been that. The vehicles that I use to accomplish that were many. You know, I was a coach. I had gyms. I did put my body and my mind in harm's way to help. I did step in when the time was required. I was there for anybody that reaches into my DM and is going through a rough time. And more importantly, for the people that are very close to me that have needed me along the way, not once have I not been there, right? And so all of those things, and continuing to proliferate the message and continuing to be out there trying to not impart wisdom, but share wisdom, you know, and I always use this word because really when I come and do an interview with you, I learn as much from you as you do from me, and it's an exchange, right? But sometimes when you're looking at a problem or when you're looking at something through either the same lens or at the same angle, it's kind of like brainstorming with yourself. There is no brainstorming with yourself. You know, the storm keeps going, and at the end, you spew out the exact same outcome,
right?
Which you have cognitive bias towards, and that's going to happen over and over and over again until somebody else comes in and says, "Wait a minute, look at it this way." You know, so those are all mechanisms that give my life meaning. I'm not necessarily looking for happiness. Happiness is one of those things. It's very fleeting. And if you're looking for happiness and this is your measure of success, however you define it, you're going to fail miserably multiple times in life. But if you're looking for meaning, you never fail, even if you're on the wrong end of adversity or something extremely difficult.
That's the whole concept of logotherapy, which is logos. You know what? I'm not even going to mess it up. But I'm not even going to get into what the Latin is. But essentially, Viktor Frankl was the third Viennese school of psychotherapy, come up with this concept of logotherapy, which is meaning, searching for meaning. Because you look for happiness, you're never going to find it. Happiness should be a byproduct of your hard work and your efforts. It's something that happens. It's not something that you can obtain. And that, I think, for a lot of people is a bit of an aha moment when they finally understand that and they realize that they will be happy when they're doing things, whatever it is that goes towards their meaning. And if that's being of service and value to others, and very often that's where happiness will come from, I find personally, because if my idea of meaning is for me to be awesome and me to be perfect, it's very self-centered, and it's not going to fuel that happiness for me. Maybe for someone out there, but I got to imagine that it's probably not the formula there.
Well, there's a lot of empty shells, right? Let's call a spade a spade. And so if you're an empty shell and you are seeking and looking for constant either external validation or even gaining perspective with the purpose in mind to self-validate, you're going to start doing things to pump yourself up. Because there is an insecurity there, there's a better way to do it. There's a much better way to do it because ultimately you can lie to everybody around you, but you can't lie to yourself.
No, you can't.
And you're going to call yourself out every single time you do it. And eventually it will have consequences that are, you know, not the consequences that you would like. And so there's a better way to do it, which is action the things that you need to action to be the person that you say you are. That's it. And if you live with authenticity and you are investing in the steps of the process to make you the person that you truly want to be, or the person that you say you are, or the person that other people are perceiving you to be, and that's what brings you joy, then you want to make sure that you are that person. What you see is what you get.
Because you can't have a disconnect. If there is a disconnect in there, you'll know it, and it's going to show it's going to rear its ugly head in some very interesting ways.
It does, and the problem with that is the surreptitious ways in which, or the insidious ways in which it will affect you. And insidious is dangerous, you know, because it almost, you can almost talk yourself out of something is happening here, but really what's happening is at the fundamental level, your insecurities are impacting everything you do. And so now you're 17 layers deep on this project or whatever the case may be, and nothing is going the way you want it to, and all of this is triggered by insecurities that were never actually dealt with. So if there are insecurities that are not dealt with and you haven't optimized yourself, you're going to bring these demons with you everywhere you go.
Dealing with these different challenges, and speaking of challenges, you recently had an amputation that you've had to work through. You've approached that head on. You've approached it with positivity. You've been very brutally honest in social media about the process and where you're at, and how most of it you were looking at is, hey, things are great, things are going well. And I got to imagine when you talked before about being there for other people when they reach out, it's got to take its toll on you if you're of the mindset that you're always there for everybody as they reach out. And there's always going to be people that don't even realize the toll that they're putting on others when they ask for help. I remember, what was that sign? There's an old show called The Prisoner. Patrick McGugan was the star character of it. And on the intro to everyone, he'd ride into town and there's a sign that says, questions are a burden unto others, answers are a prison unto oneself. People don't realize the burden that they're putting on other people by constantly reaching out for help. It's a multi-part kind of question. We can take it wherever we want to go, but I got to wonder about how you deal with that if you're going to be a life preserver for all of these different people, where we kind of draw that line. And while you're dealing with your own things that are going on, whether that be, you've left work in the transition phase, you've been amputated, you've lost a leg, you're dealing with learning to be a new person, how to walk and exercise and get around. How are you dealing with that?
So for me, it's all about reframing, and I use reframing very, very seriously and all the time, consistently. And I'll give you an example of what that might look like.
Sure.
We know that if a person takes the time out of their day to help somebody in need, that person is doing something that's selfless, that's difficult, but is meaningful. If the person is going through a hard time themselves and they're still out there for others, that's a next level of that meaning, for me anyways. It adds to the meaning of what it is that I'm doing. And I've had people come back to me later, when I sent you this email, I never realized what was going on in your own life. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for jumping on a Zoom call. Thank you so much for going for coffee, or whatever the case may be. And so I actually thrive in that. I thrive in that for a variety of different reasons. But one of those is I need to show up for myself. I am going through my own ordeals. I'm going through my own adversity. And now I have to negotiate my adversity and perhaps helping somebody else that's having a hard time. Not to be confused with not holding space for yourself. And it's a feeling out process. I can't tell the next person that's doing way too much for everybody, perhaps, that you should continue doing that if it doesn't feel right. At the end of the day, you need to do what feels right for you in the moment. And some people, it's isolating when they're dealing with adversity, and then they come back and help the collective stronger. And that's the perfectly good way to do it. But for me personally, I just love to be challenged, and I love to be challenged in a way that would really, really impact most people, I love a real challenge. Like this amputation, that was a worthy challenge for me. And for me to continue engaging with the people, to continue to be there for those that needed me, is just an added layer to this sort of meaningful enterprise that I got going on here.
Sure.
Right? And you know what? Let's call a spade a spade. Is it 100% selfless, or is it somewhat self-serving? It has to be. It's somewhat self-serving. It makes me feel good.
Sure.
It makes me spend less time fretting on some of the things that I'm going through and having, engage with other people and helping. And sometimes when I out there having a conversation with somebody and we're discussing all these things, sometimes I get answers to my own questions in the process. So there is a certain part of this that is somewhat self-serving, but it's on an individual basis. You need to know where the limits are for you, and that's a lifetime of establishing boundaries. And often what happens is I have very healthy boundaries, very healthy. Some people laugh all the time at my boundaries. When I'm in a social event, when I'm gone, nobody says hi to. I'm gone. I disappeared. That's it. There's no pass go. There's no claiming 200. It's like, see you later, right? And everybody that knows me knows that. When Seb is done here, he's gone.
Yeah.
Right? And those apply in a variety of different dimensions. But I'm not ashamed of my boundaries. I have very clear, and so that is an important skill to have. If somebody doesn't have boundaries and they're trying to live in the way that I do, but without having boundaries, now they're going to get encroached upon all the time, right? So let's take something very simple. A kid sends me a message. He says, "Hey, I've been following your social media. I really love the stuff you put out. It's very motivating. I want to be this or I want to be that. And I was hoping to get your thoughts on that." Well, I got 900 podcasts out.
Yeah.
So
good point.
Here's a link to X, Y, and Z. And if you have any remaining questions, I'll be there after. So that's my way of establishing a certain boundary and still providing some help. And so the question becomes, do I have boundaries? And if I do, what are some of the mitigating factors or some of the mitigating strategies that I can use to maintain my boundaries and still accomplish the mission? So the mission is this. The mission execution is flowing. And this is the biggest mistake that people make. It applies to tactical operation, but it also applies to life. You have an end goal, you have a plan, you have a mission. They falling in love with the mission is totally fine. Falling in love in the way by which the mission is accomplished is not. So when I said don't fall in love with your own plan earlier, I'm talking about the execution plan,
right.
The execution phase of the plan, which is which action do I need to take to achieve the outcome that I set for myself. And so that's something that has to be extremely clear in your mind. What is your mission, and what are some of the ways by which you can accomplish the mission, maintaining healthy boundaries?
What were some of the biggest challenges that you've had with this amputation? And I'll throw a couple things out there. I mean, when it first happened, you put a post out and says, "Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear the jokes. Come on, guys." Right? I'm sure everyone loves. Are you still enjoying the jokes?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I got to tell you, man, if I'm being 100% honest, which I always am anyways, I will say this. My request to ask people to make fun of me at that time was the absolute saving grace of the first 3 days of my amputation.
Yeah.
Because what ended up happening is, and I want to bore you with the details medically speaking, but I was supposed to have a stent in there that was supposed to prevent pain, and it wasn't working. It wasn't firing. So I essentially raw dogged an amputation for 2 days. Right?
Yeah.
And when that happens, and I'm trying to distract myself from the 10 out of 10 pain and all those things, and I jump on my social and I see a news clip of me fighting a great white shark and having lost a leg, and it just made me laugh so hard that is a natural medicine for pain, for adversity, for anything, is to smile, to laugh, to take yourself lightly, to not take everything so seriously. All of those things. It was the single best decision I made as I was going through the process, was to say, let me have it. What it also did is it prevented people from getting in my inbox in a sort of self-pity kind of, and I gotta tell you, man, I have this thing where at the best of times, I absolutely do not like compliments at all.
I'm the same.
I don't.
I'm the same.
And it's funny because my fiance, soon-to-be wife, makes fun of me all the time. She's like, you get so awkward when we give you compliments, right? and so if you think of it, you make a post, you make something that's meaningful that you think may have a meaningful impact on others, and now it becomes about you, because it's like, oh, you're the greatest, you're this, you're that, you're that. I'm not. What I'm doing here is nothing, and I'm gonna say this. You look at a guy like Mark Omrod, for example, right? I have a below the knee amputation, and I'm not discounting the fact that it comes with challenges. But can you imagine? And it's an elective amputation. I made the decision to do it on account of the totality of the circumstances, and it served the purpose. You're, a 19, 20, 21-year-old vet that's out there somewhere patrolling, and boom, 3 limbs missing. And now you're coming back, and now you have to go through So I think that as humans, when we assess difficulty, we're not very good at that. We're not. We're actually not very good at knowing what's truly, truly difficult and what are the spectrums of difficulties that are going to be. And I think part of this is you don't want to be elitist, right? Like, oh, you're just a below the knee amputee. And we see it in amputee world. It's actually quite funny.
Yep.
There's a bit of drama like this. But one of the things that's important to realize is that seriousness is only as serious as you apply it against the situation that you're in. That's a decision that you make. Nobody else can tell you this is really hard, because for somebody, really hard means walking 2 kilometers.
Sure.
For somebody, really hard is running 100 miles. And for somebody, really hard is running 10 times 100 miles back to back. Like, the spectrum is infinite. Is an infinite spectrum of difficulties, and we are really bad at assessing, what's truly, truly difficult. And so I came to the conclusion, and for me, what has worked best over the years is to assign, to not assign a specific level of difficulty to an event. It just is. So instead of being like, oh, that's going to be really hard, it changes nothing. Like, me thinking that it's going to be really hard is an emotion. The work still has to get done. The actions still have to be taken, and I still have to take certain steps to make certain things happen.
Just is.
So you can stand in front of the board at the gym, watching the workout being laid out on the board, and be like, oh my God, this is going to be really hard. And you start getting in your head, and you start interfering in the process. You start doing all this. Or you can look at this, and this is what I have to do.
Just is.
Like, acknowledge the fact that, you're unsettled about it, perhaps. Put the emotions aside and look at it objectively. It's the work that needs to be done.
There's neither good nor bad, but thinking makes it so.
100%. And I think a lot of people, it's greatly underappreciated, and it's greatly misunderstood. People think that things are coming with an associated value of difficulty, or and it's like, it doesn't. What is it for you? Like, how do you feel? And it's so interesting because it's almost like anecdotal stifling. Like, if somebody is coming in and telling you how difficult something is, then automatically that is difficult to you.
Right.
And this is how people talk themselves out of doing all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to go to the special operation selection because a friend of mine who's much fitter than me or much faster and stronger didn't make it. So therefore, I won't,
It's a very odd kind of group think that I see people subscribe to quite often. So one person thinks a certain way, the group starts thinking a certain way. They did who was it? It was Tim Cook and I think it was Elon. I think that the two of them were in an interview. They're talking about how they hire people, how they bring people on. And the one big takeaway that I got from it was individuals who are high performers that go into a low-performing environment will quickly adapt to that low-performing environment, and vice versa. You can bring a low performer and put them in the group of high performers, and they'll quickly adapt to that. And this kind of groupthink mentality is so massive. If you're hanging around people who are like, oh, this is hard. Oh, this is difficult. And that becomes your bar and that's your world. And you're constrained within this little sphere of, well, here's my limits and here's as far as I can go. And I think having the mindset, and maybe that comes from, I guess, forging your own path to a big extent, as opposed to trying to surround yourself with other people with a larger sphere. Having your own path where you have an infinite sphere in different directions they can kind of go to. I'm just kind of thinking out loud as I go through here, because I can definitely say there are those with larger spheres that I will talk to and I'll look at and I will say, okay, that sounds good in certain areas. Is that what you do, or are you kind of creating your own sphere?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a combination of both. I think if you're surrounded with the right people around you, the people that elevate you, the people that bring out the best version of yourself, the people that will call you out every time that you're doing something that perhaps is substandard, or that you're limiting your potential, or that you're lacking vision, or whatever the case may be. I mean, if you're surrounded by people like this, it's a great check-in. A periodical check-in where you actually get to say, okay, where am I at in relation to others that are doing all these things? And I think that occurs naturally. But generally what happens is people, instead of embracing that and saying, I can now elevate myself, there's an attitude of resistance to what it is that I'm seeing. Like, so if the person, works out more than I do, but they love to get up in the morning and they love to work out. If this person does X, Y, and Z, but I've done, and so again, an emotional reaction or a chain of emotional reactions to a variety of different things that you have zero control over, and that's not what the purpose is. If you want to optimize yourself, you need to look at it differently. Can I be a little bit better here? Can I engage a little bit more here? Can I do this? And if your friends are out there getting after it and getting things done and moving the needle and helping others, and this is the sphere that you're in the right spot. As long as you have the right attitude in relation to what you are discovering about yourself or the things that you are doing. If you start playing a possum, or if you start putting your head in the sand, you're doing it wrong. It's not going to work. I don't care if you surround yourself with the best of the best. So you need to be engaged in the process of actively seeking the chinks in your armor, and so that you can reinforce areas of your armor that are lacking.
Where are your chinks right now?
Well, right now my leg is, for me, it's constant, right? I have chinks in every single dimensions of my life. So it's just a matter of, can I bring a little bit more polish here? Can I bring a little bit more finish? Can I build a little bit more, resilience? Can I build a little bit more ability to communicate? Like all of those things. And so I'm in a constant state of self-evaluation, constantly. And I'm not suggesting that sometimes it's not obsessive. It can be obsessive. And I think that maintaining a healthy perspective on the reality of things. So I will use an analogy. I will use a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu analogy. Just because. Because what is a conversation without Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
You got to have some BJJ in it. Come on.
So I'll give you an example. You're looking at the world-class grapplers as it stands right now, and really, from a competitive standpoint, belts don't really matter all that much at all. You have like guys that are at the top level slaughtering world-class black belts, and they're blues and purples, which is much lower ranks. But their skill level and the way they develop and the way they train, and they train full-time, and all of those things has the propensity to create grapplers such as this. Now, if they train with the right people, it's the possibilities are endless. And so when you look at this as a recreational grappler, or somebody that did jiu-jitsu as a matter of self-protection in the context of maybe an operational career or whatever the case may be, or even just for self-defense purposes, when you look at this, you now start questioning, like, I'm a BJJ black belt. I've had it for 3 years. I'm technically a first dan now, just a matter of receiving it. But when I look at an operating context. So let's go to a gym full of solid black belts that are competitive black belts. I'm now at the bottom of the totem pole, right? Like from a competitive or from a competitive standpoint. Take that same person and bring them to a lineup at the bank. And now what? Right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I think it's really, really healthy to understand that you can always be better, but everything has a cost and equal or opposite reaction, or sometimes disproportionate reaction. It's necessarily not equal, right?
Right.
So you could go, for example, you could say, okay, I want to be as good as a competitive grappler. I now need to train 8 hours a day. Well, something is going to give on account of you having to do that, and many things probably, right? And so there's two portions to this. Where can I be, and where am I in reality if I'm comparing myself to people that don't do this for a living? And where is it that I'm in an acceptable range or ratio of those two things that make me fulfilled, that make me capable, that make me performing well enough that I'm satisfied with this? You know, so it's a constant evaluating what's being done out there, what's better, who does it better, how can I get better, all of those things, and then an evaluation or a risk assessment associated with that decision. If I'm to do it as good as this, what has to give for me to make that happen, you know? And so for me, I just got really good at kind of striking the balance.
Right.
And I'm very comfortable with that. When I tell people I'm a recreational black belt, they always say, why do you say that? Why do you say that? Because I am.
Sure.
It's different, you know? And telling you that I'm not a competitive black belt does not take away from me.
That you're a black belt.
It doesn't define me at all. It's just a part of who I am. But what's even more a part of who I am is authenticity. And I can't stand here and tell you all black belts are created equal, because it's just simply not the case.
Sure.
Right? So the least amount of your self-reflection are causing you to get your hackles up and to start to want to hide or to want to sugarcoat or do all of those things. As long as actions are taken to be the person you want to be, your self-worth will be at a level where those things no longer affect you in the same way. But it takes practice, and you need to take it on the chin consistently.
It's interesting you bring up self-worth. That was something that Chance was talking about recently. And he says, I've always had a difficult time valuing myself and the idea of self-worth. And I think that's a common thing. I think that's pretty common for a lot of people to, maybe part of it's being Canadian and humble, right? Maybe part of it's insecurities. Maybe it's because we're always comparing ourselves. If we look at self-worth, well, I'm sure I'm a black belt, but I'm not that black belt, right? And that black belt will say, sure, I'm that black belt, but I'm not. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. And you also brought up the fact that you have a difficult time taking compliments. Are those two things, is there an intertwining in there at all of the difficulty with compliments? Because I have a difficult time. When people give me compliments, I have a hell of a time with it. The biggest compliment I can ever get is for someone to say nothing, but just to live their life in a better way if I was able to affect them in a better way, right? That would be a compliment to me. Why do you think you have a difficult time with compliments? And can you talk a little bit about self-worth?
Yeah, like I don't know is the answer.
Okay, fair enough. So you're like me, all right.
So when it comes to my difficulty accepting compliments, I remember being like this as a kid even.
Yes.
So this is not something new at all, and I think to a certain extent I was a ambivert. So I was a person that had the capacity to be extroverted and introverted.
I've never heard that term before. Ambivert.
Ambivert. Yeah.
Okay.
And for me, I find that the compliments piece or some of those things seem to bring the introvert in me.
100%.
I kind of want to go into hiding. And I'm sure a psychologist listening to this is going to be, we got some trauma here or something, And I'm not suggesting there isn't by any stretch of imagination.
Sure. Yeah.
But the reality is it makes me extremely uncomfortable. And to a certain extent, if you said to me, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to post, as you normally do, the regular content on your social media. You're going to have these conversations. And everybody will bring a piece of their wisdom to what you just posted. But you will never again be externally validated. I would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I legitimately do
100%.
not need it at all. But what I do need and what I like to see is people bringing a little bit more wisdom. So I start something, I put a post out there. Some will say that there's wisdom in there. Some will say that perhaps it's inspiring or whatever the case may be. Cool. But what do you have to contribute to this? Right? Because ultimately what happens is we live life as passengers in a car. And sometimes it's a driverless car. I'm just sit here in the passenger seat waiting for somebody to do something. Anybody to take the wheel, any external factors, anything is impacting me directly because I'm not engaged in a process. I want you in a, what's the word? There is a word for a style of education where you educate and the person reframe what you've taught them and they come out with the... With their own version, so to speak, and I'm forgetting
Iterative?
the word. No, no. There's a really good word for it, and now I can't. Constructivism.
Constructivism.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that's what it is. So constructivism is exactly what should be, in my opinion. Is here's all this wisdom, all these technical data, all these things that I'm providing you. You assess all of this against your own skills, knowledge, and abilities, and you come up with a hypothesis of your own in relation to something. And now we're really moving the needle forward because it's easy to jump on a bandwagon. Oh yeah, that was a great post. Love it. Next.
Right. You're a passenger in a bus.
You are.
That somebody else is driving for you.
And so what do we know about that? Well, I'll tell you what we know. You can sit in the passenger seat of a car and go to the same location 5 times. And never know how to get there.
You got that, yes.
But if I say to you, I need you to take the map book, I'm dating myself here, and I need you to monitor X, Y, and Z and tell me when the next turn is and what the street name is and all of those things. When you ask that person again to drive back to that location, they're in a much better position to do that because they were engaged in the process.
Yeah.
And most people live life disengaged and engage in other people's lives. So you see external things, you're like, oh, that's cool, but you disengage in your own life. And so that's why I love when people are engaging in the post. So I post something, it's thoughtful, it's maybe sometimes at times intellectual, it might be a variety of different things for different people, or maybe it's completely at odds with how you see the world. And if that's the case, then I want to hear it. Like let it formulate some sort of a hypothesis, or let's formulate something that I can now think about. And now we're expending the knowledge. And I mean, we've seen it on all platforms. You've seen it on your Silvercore podcast. You're growing an idea as you're developing it, as you're talking. And it's the same with the collective. The collective is really good at that because you have all these different perspectives coming in. All these smart people with incredible backgrounds, and they're bringing a different angle to this. And next thing you know, your own thought process has evolved. Adaptation is good. Evolution is excellent.
What do you think about Jason, and I'm going to butcher his last name, Subkowitz? How do you pronounce that?
Subkowitz?
Is that how it's pronounced?
I believe so.
Okay,
yeah.
Subkowitz.
Subkowitz, yeah.
He recently put a post up there on social media. He was working really hard to try and share what his journey and positivity. And he says, it's just not for me. This is, it's not the path for me. I can identify with some of that. I can definitely identify with the tool of social media being used to be able to bring other people up and to assist others. What are your thoughts on that one?
I feel the exact same way as Jason does.
Yeah.
I wasn't on social media until 2017. And at the time, I was running my team. I was listening to Metallica in the back room, creating ops plans, going from operation to operations. And I was singularly focused on my work and my guys and the things that we needed to be doing. And so I never worried about that. And some of the guys would make fun of me for that. and it was all good funds, and I
Sure.
I owned it as I do anything else in life. And eventually I saw it as there was a way for me perhaps to continue impacting the collective by taking that route, which was supposed to be a temporary state of affairs, and quite, if I'm being honest, it still is a temporary state of affairs. I do not stay and remain stagnant. And so once I spent 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years putting all kinds of content out there, trying to help the collective do all this stuff, my mission here is done. And I can make a correlation to my mental health walk.
Yeah.
You know, we just hit 60. You know, certain things started happening that made me reevaluate. And I came to the conclusion, the realization that those 60 walks that I've done out of goodwill, and all of the sacrifices that were associated with this are not without their cost.
That's right.
And so for me, at 60 mental health walk, it was done.
Yeah.
Right? I now am passing the buck. I've given
Passing the torch.
Yeah, the torch.
Yes.
Precisely. And I've engaged in the process wholeheartedly, but I have reached the end of my capacity to continue doing that. Now I'm going to morph and do something else, right? I'm going to do something else. And so I when I look at a person like Jason, who's I have an incredible amount of respect for, by the way, for a variety of reasons, but primarily he's got a great heart and just I love his philosophical take on things. I love how present he is for everyone. I just love how he lives. Like I love everything about how he walks the walks and talks the talk. But also, I know that this was counterintuitive to him. And I'm sure with some of the inherent negative backlash that you get, what it does is it brings he's in a peaceful environment doing peaceful and meaningful things, and he brings a certain layer of
Invites it in.
Negativity,
Yep.
right? And you don't need it. You absolutely don't need it. You don't need to be reading all the comments. You don't need to be out having arguments. You don't need, Keanu Reeves says his best. It's like, I'm at the age now that if you tell me that the sky is pink, I'll say yes. Of course it is. Like,
I love it.
He's done with trying to convince people against their will, and people convinced against their will are of some opinions still, right? And so for me, I actually love that Jason did that because it poked me. It poked me. It said, what about you?
I kind of figured it would.
Where are you at with that, right? And that's why I told Jason. I said, as soon as, and I've been very open with this. When I'm in a place, at a time in my life where I feel like I've provided enough and that I've given enough of myself and sacrificed enough of myself and those around me, because let's call a spade, like taking the time to have all these conversations, doing all those things, is taken away from the time that you could be spending with your family and friends. And so there is a cost to this, and it's a collective sacrifice. It's not just my sacrifice. And so when I look at this, it tells me, when is your turn? When are you reevaluating when you need to reprioritize and go in a different direction?
Did you ask yourself that question?
100%. Immediately.
And?
Immediately. Well, so for me, it depends is the answer. It depends where everything else goes, right? Because I have all kinds of plans. And so when some of those plans starts going, some of those will require a certain level of social media engagement. It's the nature of the beast right now, right? But as far as having an open public page with like regular updates and pictures that are pretty polished, and that's the piece that that's not sustainable for me. I'm not interested in doing that forever. And so it's going to be a matter of negotiating or evaluating where I'm at in space and time. How do I feel about my contribution and where it's going, and the reality of my current life and doing the things that are meaningful for me, which, consist of generally being in the woods, walking around, hiking.
I like that.
Yeah.
What does your next step look like?
Well, so I'm essentially moving from the city to a 14-acre property in a rural setting that has no skip the dishes, no.
I like it a lot.
I know, I do too. And so one of the things I really want to pick up that I've never done is hunting.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, that goes without saying. And it's almost shameful that I've been on this podcast 3 or 4 times and I'm not even a hunter.
Well, I've never hunted in Alberta, but I do have my wild card, which is a requisite for hunting in Alberta.
Nice.
And I do know people in Alberta who are very good hunters. So I think we can figure something out.
Nice. Awesome. So yeah, I'm being told I need to do a couple of courses and I'm in to get all that done, but I want to do some of that. But what I want to do is really live the life that I currently live, but I have to go to various places to do it. And so I'll give you an example of this. You know, my days of working 50, 60 hours a week are done. Mm-hmm. It's never happening again unless I'm working temporarily for a short time to try to get something accomplished. There's no problem doing that. But my days of sacrificing health, wellness, and everything on account of making a buck are done. Mm-hmm. Done. And so what I want to do what I do now is, I go to the gym, I get my training in. I do a little bit of work in front of my computer. A little bit later, I'll go on a run or I'll go on a hike. I'll take my dog Achilles out. I'll do all of those things, but I'll try to have multiple modalities in a day. Mm-hmm. Wellness modalities, that is, right? In the various pillars, all interconnected, doing all this stuff. So what I want to do is I want to go out there. I want to build a gym, a functional gym. I want to build a mat space because I want to have some people coming in so I can continue doing jiu-jitsu. And I've already had MMA fighters contact me, say, hey, we're going to come train with you, all this stuff. So I'm in for that. But also I want to have sauna, hot tub, cold plunge, and I'm 20 minutes from Waterton Park, so the provincial park, one of the most beautiful provincial park in Alberta. There's Police Lake next to me, which you can go in for either swimming or fishing or doing all of those things. So I want to do some of those things. So right now I'm in the wellness phase of my life, and it's probably been since, I would say, 5 years ago that I've put an incredible amount of emphasis on prioritizing that above almost anything else. I also want to help the community, as cheesy as this sounds, because that's a very tight-knit community over in Cardston where I'm going. Yeah. And I want to be there. And I want to engage in that. I want to engage in this. Is somebody needing us real time, wheels to the pavement, we're in. I want to re-spool We Defy Canada. We Defy Canada has not gone anywhere. I don't quit on things. I just set them aside because I need to reprioritize. Sean and I are finishing the book. We're probably 7 months away from that.
Amazing.
I want to start a retreat. I would like to have a wellness retreat aimed at people wanting to get into first response world, the corporate world as well. I would love to do a decompression retreat for people that have left high-stake jobs, and that can be in any sort of context, for them to learn how to change the way they do life, because on account of how they lived life for so long and maybe not having had the exposure that I was blessed to have, and I want to do it not in a scripted way where I teach them things that we know academically. I want them to experience things. So go and do equine therapy by riding horses in the mountains. Go do a little bit of rock climbing so that even if you're scared, so that you can work through the kinks of pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and gain some valuable insight about yourself, your life, and how you do things. I want them to have some self-defense mechanisms. So there's going to be some, jiu-jitsu, some stand-up, some whatever is needed, but also some situational awareness. I want to do some resilience classes and have some academic piece coming in there and bring some people that truly exemplify all those values and people that walk the walk to come in and guest instruct on those. And, I hate to say it, but you're coming at some point, my friend.
Hey, I'd be honored to be there.
But those are projects that I have at the moment. And, I also, midway through a thesis, I need to finish as well, which I always seem to find,
yes.
further down the line.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. Did you go with the thesis that we were talking about before, the possibly highly controversial one?
No, actually, I didn't.
Okay.
And the reason why I didn't is because it would have been very difficult to find empirical, information about that, and also it would have encountered all kinds of resistance. And I'm at the point now where I need to finish my degree. That's all.
Yeah, I hear you.
And one of the things that I'm very passionate about has been Haiti, right? And so Haiti, there's a complex landscape there, and so
Yes.
and it ties right into the nature of my degree, which is international security, right? And so I sort of refocus on Haiti, and it's great because it's recent. There's a lot of recency, there's a lot of recent events, and there's also a long tracking history with Haiti. And so you have enough of that empirical data, but you also have enough of the anecdotal stuff, and you have enough of everything else that you need to build a thesis that's meaningful, that fills a research gap.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading that one. To change tracks here a little bit, and I know I'm kind of throwing it out here from left field. What was the best joke you ever got on the when you put the call out for the after the amputation there?
Well, we already spoke about it. It has to be the shark.
It was
right?
the shark one.
So,
okay.
but there's a continuation to this story. So basically, what happens is a friend of mine makes a news clip, and the news clip is a man saves his girlfriend by fighting a great white and loses a leg in the process, all this stuff. And of course, it's me that's on the cover, and there's a great white. They have the great white hanging from as if somebody fished it out of the water after or anything. But what happened was, I guess one of my fiance's, Alex's friend or colleague, was reading this, and she thought this was the most heroic thing she's ever heard. And so what she started doing is telling all of her family and everybody about this incredible dude that Alex is with that fought a great white to save her, and and everybody's in awe. And we get to this event. Alex was working an event, and this person was there working with her. And when we started talking, she was all confused because she didn't realize that this whole thing was a joke, right? Like, I didn't actually fight a great white, and I'm not a hero.
See, and here I thought when you left the hospital, you'd be wearing like an IHOP shirt or something.
Oh, man. Oh, it was beautiful to see the disappointment in her eyes when she realized I actually wasn't a hero and I didn't fight a great white.
That's funny. That's funny. What about, there's the other thing that we kind of talked about a little bit at the beginning of this podcast, which was in recent events, depending on when this guy comes out, the Trump assassination attempt. You've got a background in international security. You've got a background in leading teams for executive protection. And, everyone and their dog seems to have an opinion and be an armchair security expert on this. You've actually got some background and can speak with some authority on this. What were your thoughts on the assassination attempt?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a lot of thoughts. It depends which segment we're looking at and we're evaluating, right? So one of the things that I will prioritize when it comes to formulating an opinion or forming an opinion in relation to something is there's generally a lot more that meets the eye.
Sure.
So understanding that there are limitations to what you are watching, and those limitations are not to be understated because you are going to miss critical pieces of information that were either not known to the person at the time that made a certain decision, or that makes it look like somehow all that information was available to everybody because you're getting a bird's eye view of the situation.
Sure.
So that's very dangerous to do that, and I try not to do that as best I can. But certainly there are a lot of questions, right? There's a lot of questions. Like, we're talking about 130 yards away from the presidential stand where he was, and with a clear shot. Like, how was that roof left unattended is very basic. Now, if that roof was 500 yards away, okay, I can see that happening, right? You're going to have to stop expending your perimeter at some point because manpower is a reality. Like you're gonna need to be able to staff those positions and make sure that you can maintain those positions and still have your core group where they need to be. Now, when you look at some of the reactions of the Secret Service, and I've worked with Secret Service in the context of close protection before. I've worked primarily with CAT, the counterattack team, which is their sort of the SWAT team that's attached to the close protection team. And the CAT has a bit of a different sort of task set or mission set. But when you look at the close protection team themselves, there's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of questions. If you are to use your body to body bunker, so to speak, a very, very large individual who's 6'3" and quite imposing, it's going to be very difficult to do that if your detail is very small, right? And unfortunately, there was a lot of that going on, which would expose, the upper torso, the head, and it's almost like there was an assumption that it was only one shooter. Whereas that's another thing you would never do. Always one plus one. If there's one, there's going to be others. And I don't care how secure you think the site is, your site was just proven insecure. Right? Because somebody was there capable of doing this. So that means that any sort of levels of security you had on that site has now been completely negated as far as you're concerned. And you need to treat this as if there is an additional shooter.
100%. So
having him at waist, folded in half, covered by his people, rushed out of there ASAP is there's no negotiating with that. Like that needed to happen a lot faster than it did. There may be reasons why it didn't, and that's the reason why I say we have to be careful when we're armchair quarterbacking. There is all kinds of questions that can be asked, and I know there's all kinds of conspiracy theories out there and all kinds of things. And sometimes conspiracy theories are not conspiracies. Sometimes they're real,
right?
And so, but the only way to know that is to have intricate knowledge of the timeline of everything that occurs and be able to establish who knew what, when, and what are some of the things that happen. Now, some of the hands and feet skills and some of the things that we have seen, I have thoughts on that as well. So there is a lot of memes being put out there. One of the ladies having a real hard time reholstering her pistol, doing all this. And the propensity has been to jump on a gender bandwagon. Sure. Right? One of the good friends I have, her name is Jen Lascelle, has spent an entire almost over a decade, if not more, assigned to our Prime Minister. And she is a team leader, or was a team leader, and an absolutely incredible woman, like really fit, really capable, shoot, move, communicate, do all of those things. She would have made this girl look like, a completely different human. And so, but now when we start attacking the gender piece, what does that say about women like Jen that are out there doing the right things, that are training hard, that are doing those things? So I do not like this. And we're also taking a sanitized view of this because she just had the Super Bowl, right? Let's call a spade here. If your job is executive protection on a level 5 dignitaries, such as the President of the United States, and somebody just shot him, that was your Super Bowl.
Yes.
The stress response that you will have in relation to this is extremely hard to emulate in training.
Sure,
really
through the roof.
So is it possible, I'm just being devil's advocate, that she struggled with arousal more than she did with the rest? And so, we know as you get more and more aroused, the fine motor skills are going out the windows and things are being impacted.
Sure.
Now, when the military special operation communities looks at this, they probably, it's been quite evident that there was a lot of condemnation on these types of things. But also the soft military community needs to understand that their skill set that was acquired wasn't really acquired until they got into battle. They acquired technical skills and tactical skills and operational skills, but really where the wheels meet the pavement is where the true learning happens. Well, that's a very, very difficult scenario to achieve in the policing context.
Yeah, you're not putting people into true situations over and over again to get that training and experience.
A certain level of inoculation. And there was a lot of criticism on the Secret Service, and and on police in general. But I got some news for you. A lot of these Secret Service guys are former special operators, and some of them are tier 1 guys.
Right.
Like, so it's not so black and white.
Mm-hmm.
There's also another thing here. The last time a presidential candidate or a president was attacked in such a way was in 1981.
Was what, Reagan? Yeah.
Correct. In 81. So anything that hasn't happened since 1981 is contributing to a certain level of complacency. And I don't care. Mm-hmm. I don't care how you try to, spin it or whatever. It will inherently happen. Mm-hmm. It will happen. And if there is a problem, like say your current administration isn't supporting necessarily the fiscal burden that's associated with your work or those types of things, now what you start doing is you need to impose risk mitigating strategies. Mm. And risk mitigating is not risk eliminating.
Right.
It's only what can we do based upon what we have available to us in this time at this point. And unfortunately, this thing that we know could be something now needs to be left alone because we don't have anybody to do it. And so the rest of it is quite dangerous. Like when people say some cop was approached and provided the information, or a cop showed up on the roof and the guy pointed his rifle at him and he left. Did he leave, or did he got up on the rooftop and the rifle was pointing at him and he ducked down?
Right.
Like what do you expect him to do in that case? And I know what the propensity is. Well, okay, action versus reaction, my friend. You show up and the guy's to drop on you and he already knows what he's about to do. You're going to fall flat on your face every single time it happens.
Yeah.
We've seen it over and over in the scenarios. I can put you in this room right here, put a gun in front of you, and I can say to you, I'll put a gun in front of me. Let's change this. I'll put a gun in front of me here, and I will sit here with my hands on the table, and I will have an operator or somebody coming in or a cop coming in with their gun pointed at my chest, and I will retrieve that gun and shoot them almost every single time before they can react. Yeah. Action versus reactions. Humans have to observe, they have to orient, they have to decide, and they have to act. All that takes time. The person that's already knowing what they're about to do has only one thing to do: action. Yeah. That's all that needs to happen. And so it's much faster. All this to say that there is a lot of factors here, and it's important that we look at the totality of the circumstances when it comes to sort of mudslinging and like the whole. But what's also important is to be blatantly honest. From the Secret Service side, like
there's failings.
100% there are. Yeah. And so how do we address this? And I mean, had it not been for Trump moving his head in a very particular way at a very particular time, call it divine intervention, call it whatever you want.
Sure.
We would be looking at the prospect of a very different landscape right now. In fact, I don't know how bad this could have been.
Oh, it would be really bad, regardless of what your opinion is of Trump, one side or the other. It's just bad for democracy in general.
As far as divisiveness,
huge.
I don't think it would have created a bigger gap. And I think that to a certain extent, this unfortunate event has brought people together from both parties, and not everybody, but it seems to have cemented that we're here for a common goal, and we've been fighting each other this entire time. Mm-hmm. And you can see sort of a bit of a shift in the landscape. Now, will that last? People have short memories, as we know.
Very short, yes. But the other thing they're doing, and I'm liking, is putting some responsibility on the media for how they're reporting and how people are inciting violence against other people just through how they broadcast, through the text, through whatever. And there is a social responsibility, like that teacher at UBC here who's now under investigation, who is saying, and I'm paraphrasing, too bad Trump didn't get shot, and too bad it could have been so much better if he was. There is a social responsibility on people who have a voice and who have influence over others to be not inciting that sort of divisiveness.
I couldn't agree more. Just before I launch into this, there's something I kind of forgot that I want to add in there. When I was talking about the lady who was having a hard time reholstering and all this stuff, I just want to be crystal clear, right? We know that most law enforcement agencies are highly restricted when it comes to training. And when you look at a close protection agency that follows the presidential candidates and a variety of other people, past presidents and whatnot, I assume that there probably is a lack of training there.
Sure.
Right? And so some of the physiological responses to stress are going to be exacerbated if the training isn't where the training needs to be. So we can't just look at this and be like, okay, well, this was all nerves, because it possibly wasn't, right? Nerve were a factor. There's no question. Understanding out the gravity of the situation as an agent that's working this, but also understanding that that's precisely where you're there for. And that needs to be at the forefront of everything you do, every step you take, every punch you throw or don't throw, every gym session, every range session, every bullet you fire. All of those things have to have that in the back of your mind. My ability to perform my job to the best of my ability is other people's lifeline. Like, there's no way around that.
I'd think one of two things would likely happen from that for this individual who's the height of all these different memes. Like, did you see the David Attenborough AI voice meme where David Attenborough, the documentary filmmaker for wildlife, and it's this little voiceover in the background of, oh, here we see the internatural environment. And here's where she hones in on her professional acting skills of pretending she's drawing the pistol again and doing a deep scan of the environment. Like, it's really funny.
Yeah.
Not for her. So I would imagine that one of two things are going to happen. One, she's going to say, hey, maybe this isn't for me. Or two, she's going to say, all right, let's get back to some training and let's pick this up a bit. And and how a person deals with that sort of thing is going to be very important. But you said there's another point to all of this that you were jumping into.
That was the original question you were asking here, which now escapes my mind. So what was it again?
I don't know. I forget too. I was hoping you could kind of help me there.
No, I can't remember what it was now.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I'm pretty stoked to see where you're moving with your life and where things are going. I love the fact that you're constantly evaluating and taking a look at, am I bringing the most impact for myself and for those around me? I like the approach that you've taken with the mental health walks. You've done a lot of good with those, and you've passed the torch, and hopefully they continue. I'm stoked to see what things are going to look like for you in Alberta. That's going to be the next big transition here. And when we're off air here, I've got a bunch of ideas for you. So I'm going to be throwing them your way just to see if anyone are up your alley or if they hit. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we should talk about?
We should talk about the fact that I been wanting an alibi dog for over a decade again.
Yeah.
But it's something that you just can't. So they're also referred to as the Central Asian Shepherd.
Okay.
And I have Achilles, my Malinois, of course. I'm just all into the simple breeds, the breeds that are super easy to train.
So easy to work with.
So one of the things that I did is I recently put a deposit on an alibi. So I will.
Did you really?
Yeah. So the litter is supposed to be born in November or December, and so next sort of winter-ish.
Yeah.
I should have an alibi on the property, and that's super exciting.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So what are they known for? What's that breed known for?
Well, they're shepherds, right?
Yeah.
So they're protecting the flock and their flock is essentially their family unit, their territory, and they are extremely capable. They're extremely capable. And there's various stories out there of them, fighting and beating wolves and things. And when you talk to wolf experts, some of this is being questioned at time, but there is no question that there is individual anecdotal stories of some of these dogs, like going to incredible length to protect. And I think that being in an environment where grizzlies are going to walk through your yard and all this stuff is probably a great idea to have a 130-pound alibi, just versus my cute Malinois that is really cool for social media, but probably wouldn't do anything.
A little too lovey-dovey now.
Yeah. Somebody compromised him, not to name anybody. Alex.
Yes. Yeah, I say the same thing about my dog. I'm like, you guys have got what you look for, right? But I mean, it's there's a dog trainer that we've had on the podcast here, and Ron Bain. He's and I was talking to him a little bit back and forth. He's like, "You're going to end up with a lap dog, Trav. You know that, right?" I get it. But I'm like you. I'd love to have another dog, but it needs to have space. Where we're at right now, I live in Ladner, got a beautiful place, got some space, but the types of dogs we're looking at are higher energy. They need a lot of places to roam around, and so I figure our next dog we're going to get, I'm going to have to do the same thing as you. Get some acreage, get some place where they can actually run around.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. They got perimeter collars, where because it's important. I mean, you have a dog breed that's a big and strong dog breed like this. You want to make sure that there's a level of control, and we're gonna have some fencing and things and kennels, for them, because also it has like very thick fur and it gets hot really quickly. So the winter is perfect. And also where I'm going in southern Alberta, actually the average is something like -10. So it's not
bad.
No, the winters are not like the winters are, say, in Calgary, for example.
And you probably get a fair bit of sun there too.
It's the sunniest place in the country.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a 7-acre available in case you want to build on it, by the way.
Well, just maybe a little workshop with a little shed upstairs, do a little blacksmithing.
I'm in.
All right. I love it. Well, Seb, thank you so much for being on the Silvercore Podcast again. We're going to do our next one, I think, is going to be held in Alberta at your new place. I'm going to bring the show on the road, and we'll do it there. Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, brother. It was my pleasure.